Hello, everybody. How are you today? Welcome to another Bible story reading. I am so excited that you are here with me today. This is the story so many of you have been asking me about and waiting for, and today we're going to get to it. For those of you joining one of these videos for the very first time, I'd like to tell you what we do here. We go through the stories of the Bible for people who don't know what the stories are. Maybe you've only heard bits and pieces of the stories. Maybe you've only heard what other people have told you about them, but you've never read them in their entirety. So that's what we do here. We read the stories for people who don't know what they are. Or maybe you've just forgotten what they say. Well, we have been in the story of David. David is king of Israel. And everybody seems to know the infamous story of David and Bathsheba, when David committed adultery with Bathsheba. Today, we are going to discuss it. We're going to tell the story of it. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. We're going to start with 2 Samuel chapter 11. In the spring, when kings marched out to war, David sent Joab with his officers and all Israel. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and strolled around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing, a very beautiful woman. So David sent someone to inquire about her, and he said, "Isn't that Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to him, he slept with her. Now, she had just been purifying herself from her uncleanliness. Afterward, she returned home. The woman conceived and sent word to inform David, "I am pregnant." David sent orders to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab and the troops were doing and how the war was going. Then he said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the palace with his master's servants. He did not go down to his house. When it was reported to David Uriah didn't go home, David questioned Uriah, "Haven't you just come from a journey? Why didn't you go home?" Uriah answered David, "The ark, Israel, and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my master Joab and his soldiers are camping in the open field. How can I enter my house to eat and drink and sleep with my wife? As surely as you live and by your life, I will not do that." "Stay here today also," David said to Uriah, "and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited Uriah to eat and drink with him. And David got him drunk. He went out in the evening to lie down on his cot with his master's servants, but he did not go home. The next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Put Uriah at the front of the fiercest fighting. Then withdraw from him so that he is struck down and dies." When Joab was besieging the city, he put Uriah in the place where he knew the best enemy soldiers were. Then the men of the city came out and attacked Joab, and some of the men from David's soldiers fell in battle. Uriah the Hittite also died. Joab sent someone to report to David all the details of the battle. He commanded the messenger, "When you finish telling the king all the details of the battle, if the king's anger gets stirred up and he asks you, 'Why did you go so close to the city to fight? Didn't you realize they would shoot from the top of the wall at the Bez, who struck Abimelech, son of Jerubasheth? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the top of the wall so that he died? Why did you get so close to the wall? Then say, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also." Then the messenger left. When he arrived, he reported to David all that Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger reported to David, The men gained the advantage over us and came out against us in the field, but we counteracted right up to the entrance of the city gate. However, the archers shot down on their servants from the top of the wall, and some of the king's servants died. Your servant Uriah, the Hittite, is also dead." David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab. Don't let this matter upset you, because the sword devours all alike. Intensify your fight against the city and demolish it. Encourage him." When Uriah's wife heard that her husband Uriah had died, she mourned for him. When the time of her mourning ended, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. However, the Lord considered what David had done to be evil. And that is the end of chapter 11. There are three ways that we look at these stories when we read them. What does it say? We have to know what the words on the page are. If you've never read the stories, you don't know what they really say. So you have to read them. Secondly, what was it saying to the people of the time? In other words, we have to understand the culture and everything that was going on. And lastly, what, if anything, is this saying to us today? Well, this story is certainly the ultimate story of marital betrayal. It is certainly the earmarked story in the Bible for adultery. And we are going to unpack this very quickly here. So what just happened? Well, it's the spring when the kings go out to battle. For some reason, a friend of mine pointed this out to me today as we were discussing this story. For some reason, David did not go out to battle. Seems a little bit unusual, and we don't know why. We're not really told why, but he didn't. And while everybody's out to battle, he's wandering around his palace rooftop, and he looks out, and he sees this woman. She's bathing. Now, we might think that's strange that somebody would be bathing out in public like that. We have to remember this did not take place in 2021. This took place way back then when customs were a little bit different. People didn't bathe and shower every day like they do here. They had basins and pots and things that they used to pour water on them. And that was a little bit difficult to do indoors where you don't have a drainage system. So more than likely, Bathsheba was bathing in the normal way that people would bathe outside. And David sees her, and he sees how beautiful she is. And he has her ordered into the palace. Now, her husband, Uriah, meanwhile, is off in battle. And while he's out in the battle, David brings her into the palace, and he ends up having relations with her, and she ends up pregnant. So David calls for Uriah to come back in from the battle, and he's thinking, I'm going to trick him to go sleep with his wife so that when people find out she's pregnant, they'll just assume it's his. So Uriah comes in from the battle, and David says, go on home, take a break. You're on a little mini vacation. But Uriah did not go home. Instead, he slept outside of the palace at the front door with the king's servants, because he's like, who am I that I should get to go home and eat and sleep with my wife and enjoy myself while my fellow Israelites are out in battle and the ark is even out there? Why would I do that? That just seems disrespectful. So he didn't do it. So David tries again. He gets him drunk, thinking if he gets drunk, he'll wander home and he'll sleep with his wife, but he did not. So now David is desperate, and he sends a message with Uriah to Joab. He's going to send Uriah back into the battle. And he tells Joab, who is the commander of these armies, he says, I want you to put Uriah in the fiercest battle and put him up front. He's hoping that Uriah gets killed in the battle. He's setting him up to be killed in the battle. So sure enough, a battle is going on, and the battle gets really close to the city walls. Now, that wasn't something that was very wise, because when you get too close to the city walls, people can throw things down from the walls, rocks, arrows, and usually it doesn't go well for the people that are too close to the city walls. But they did get a little too close, and in so doing, Uriah was struck down and killed. So Joab is going to send somebody back to David to let him know how the battle was going. And he knows that David's going to be a little upset for them getting too close to the wall. So he tells him, he says, but it's all right. If he asks why we got too close to the wall, just let him know, well, Joab is dead. And that'll get him off the hook. So sure enough, the servant goes and he tells him, he says, here's how the battle went. We pursued him all the way up to the wall. But hey, by the way, Uriah is dead. And David's like, people get struck down. Stuff happens. It's all right. So now that Uriah is dead, Bathsheba does her perfunctory duty of mourning and gets through her mourning period. Oh, my husband is dead. And then David takes her into the palace to become his wife, and they have a son together. But God looked at everything that David had done and counted it as evil. And that's how that part of the story ends. Now, there's more that's going to happen in regards to David and Bathsheba and their son, but that's how it ends there in chapter 11. So this is, just this unfolding. I keep telling you, I think that the story of David would make a wonderful movie. It would be action-packed. There's so many different elements to this. And, all along we'd been watching David. We've been following him and seeing that David was always consulting God, always doing the right thing. He wouldn't kill a king that was after him. He wouldn't do, he just wouldn't do something like this. And all of a sudden, he does something that is so seemingly out of character for him. He was tempted by this woman. First off, he didn't go out to battle like he probably should have. And secondly, he slept with somebody's wife that he should not have. And more importantly, he set a man up to be killed purposely. He had murder in his heart to get himself off the hook. So anyway, I think there are a lot of things that we can learn from just this part of the story. We don't even have to continue, and already we can learn some things. When we do things that are out of God's will, remember, I keep telling you, things won't go so well. Things are not going to go well for David because of this event. So that's where we're going to leave off. We will pick up later with the rest of the story of David and Bathsheba and what happens to their son. So I hope you learned something today. I hope to see you here during the next video. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.